Oh, look at that. That was as if we'd rehearsed it. And we really hadn't.
Nope.
It's a miracle. It's a miracle. Right. I'm not here for very long. I'm going to do my brief introduction, and it will be brief, I promise. Firstly, we're very, very pleased, honoured and thankful to have Mick Fitzgerald. Mick, 14 Cheltenham Festival winners, Grand National win. And I'm not going to say much more about your treasure trove of jockey and other glories, because I know Cheska's going to sit and talk to you about that immediately after this. So I'll do that later. And again, Francesca Camani, thank you very much for joining us again. Cheska, you're a star. We're looking forward to the ITV coverage from you both coming up this week. Just some sort of little, not even parish announcements, just the kind of running order for this evening, because we're going to try and stick to quite a tight timeline if we can, which means I've got to be off this in about 2 seconds. At 7:35, Cheska will do a sort of getting to know Mick Fitzgerald item, which will go on for a few minutes. She's got some good questions to ask, I'm sure, I believe. That'll run for about 15 minutes or so. And then that'll morph into Cheska talking to Mick about his Grand National experiences and some quotes that he may or may not have given to Des Lynam on live television. And that'll be good fun. And then at 8:05, so it's 15 minutes of the first bit, 15 minutes of the second bit, and then 10 minutes at 8:05 of both of your sort of Grand National preview and what you think and what you've managed to glean, and so on and so forth. And then at 8:15, my sort of talking head will pop up again, and we'll try and ask 1 or 2 questions that people will have put to us. I can see there's some nice chat going on at the moment, and we'll do that for about 10 minutes. So if there's any sort of really prevailing questions, we'll try and get those answered by either Cheska or by Mick. And then we will all wish ourselves our fond farewells, then go and win a fortune on the Grand National. So it all sounds pretty straightforward. And that's okay. Question from one of the people.
There's a very pressing question going on that I can see popping up on the chat thing below.
Yes.
The most important question of this evening already seems to be, are you cooking chicken tonight, Ed?
Well, the answer is yes, because yeah, but it's different sort of chicken. This time I'm doing filleted chicken thighs. And I'm having 3 of them, and my little dog Martha is having 1 of them because she's on a chicken-only diet at the moment because she's not very well. And I'm on a mainly eat chicken because that's all I'm capable to cook. But that will be going on. But I also actually want to try and pick up some Cheltenham tips. So I might this time do it after we've wrapped up.
You're a bit late for Cheltenham tips. Hopefully, Aintree.
Yeah. I can give you plenty of tips for Cheltenham. I can guarantee you all the winners.
Even I could do that.
This is why I do this and you do what you do, because I'm a terrible muddle. But I'm good at cooking chicken, so
you're a very good cook of all sorts of things, not only chicken. Mick, what's on the menu tonight? Have you eaten already?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Who's the chef in the Fitzgerald household?
My wife. And she's a very, very good chef. I am hopeless. I'm a survivor as far as food goes. As far as, food is not high on my agenda, really. Yeah,
because I always notice when we're together doing ITV stuff, you always eat dinner, right? And then not much else during the day.
No, not really, no. Like I say, I eat to survive.
Oh, you're one of those. Eat to live rather than live to eat. I'm definitely in the latter category.
Correct.
And is that a bit of a hangover from your racing days, or is that just who you are?
Yeah, I think it probably is. I think I always struggled with my weight, and I tried every diet there was when I was riding. Like, you name it, I've tried it. And I just, in the end, found that the best way for me was to not get my system going too early, because if I started eating early, it made me hungry all day. And so I always found then just by delaying the process, it meant that I seemed to operate better.
Yeah, from what I've witnessed, mixed diet is lots of cups of tea throughout the day, a few chocolates when we're working together. I don't know if that was the same when you were riding, and then usually a Dorothy burger in the evening. But probably
quite keen. Yeah.
was it burgers when you were riding as well?
No burgers, because I could have the burger but not the bun.
Yeah.
Whereas now
Oh.
I'm spoiled. I can have the bun as well.
Yeah, but you're still super trim.
Yeah, but my wife told me if I get fat, I'll be sleeping in the spare room.
Quite right. Quite right.
Yeah.
Mustn't let yourself go.
No.
Quite right. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you at Aintree this week. You're heading up tomorrow because you've got lots of different commitments after a big day at Southall, right?
Yes, big day of racing at Southall, 7 races at Southall. Looking forward to that, and then make my way up. It's a bit of a pilgrimage every year going up to Aintree, and I was very lucky, and I rode lots of winners there. But every time you drive through, just certain landmarks when you're on the road up there, and it brings the memories flooding back, really, of the days gone by. And one of the great memories I have of winning the race was spending some time with my dad, and driving up there with him. We stayed in Runcorn, and then made our way across every morning. And it's just lovely. They can't ever take away those memories. It seems like a long time ago when I won the race, but every year I go back, it feels like yesterday. So, it is lovely going back up there.
Yeah, and I can imagine so many landmarks, like the first time you rode in the race, the time you won
Yeah.
the race, the time of the bomb scare, the time the race was void. I imagine they just stick out in your memory so much. And a lot of people say like Cheltenham is quite a serious week, whereas Aintree feels a bit like the end of term, a bit of a kind of party week.
Yeah, I was always quite serious, and never went out with Cheltenham. As far as I was concerned, once my day was finished, I got in the car, drove home, and thought about the next day. From the minute I got off the last horse, I was thinking about the next day. Whereas I can remember having all great intentions going up to Aintree and thinking, right, Thursday got some really good rides, and then Thursday would go shockingly bad, and then all the lads would be going out into town to have something to eat, and I'd be like heading off to the hotel on my own. And I can remember several times saying, oh, bollocks, I'm going out on the lash with the lads, and basically just go into town, have a couple of drinks, have something to eat, and then go home. And it was amazing. Like a couple of times I did that. And it almost made me relax, because Aintree is very different to ride round than Cheltenham. It's a lot harder track. That mile-make course in the middle is really tough. You need a certain type of horse around there. You need one that travels well. And very often horses that have been to Cheltenham will let you down and disappoint, because, a lot of them have been geared totally towards Cheltenham in March. When you get to April, some of them are tired and they're nowhere near as good as they were at Cheltenham. And very often you do not have a nice experience going around there, because, the horses just aren't able to cope with it. It's very different at Cheltenham.
Just picking up on something you said there, does that still happen? Like the jockeys all going out for a meal together, having a couple of drinks, or is it a lot more serious these days? Because supposedly people used to be drinking champagne and smoking cigars before going out to ride in the Grand National. Is that right?
Yeah, that's a bit before my time. But I do remember being in the sauna one day and gasping. I was doing light on something, and Alice was in there, Paul Carberry. And so I grabbed some of his drink and went to sip it, but he was finished riding for the day, and he was just in there having a sweat, and basically he was drinking vodka. So that was far from ideal. It just looked clear liquid. I thought it was water, but it wasn't. It wasn't water. Yeah, but he was in a different league, Alice, when it came to partying. Like, he loved it. He wouldn't have been happy unless he was out most nights in Liverpool. Yeah, Alice, because of the song by Smokey. Alice, who the is Alice? And that's what he used to sing when he was riding along. So in the end, everybody just called him Alice.
When he was riding along. I love it. Do many jockeys have songs as they're riding along?
Not really, no. No, most of them squeal, but they're not singing.
Squeal. That's great. There's so many questions I want to ask you all about the Grand National, but let's just go back a little bit, because when you and I have chatted, I found it fascinating hearing about your early career, because really it took quite a while for your star to rise, didn't it?
I'm a late developer, Francesca.
Yeah, but in a nutshell, it's quite a long story, but like there's so many different stages to it, and I found it fascinating. So I'm sure a lot of our viewers, Old Gold members, etc., would love to hear how you came to become the legend that is Mick Fitzgerald.
Well, yeah, I suppose I rode on the flats for 2 seasons in Ireland, had 80 rides, didn't ride a winner. And it's amazing. Like, I look back on it now and I think, God, I was a very confident young man, cocky, many people would have felt, but I've had great belief in my own ability. Nobody else seemed to have the same view, which was, I always found, was a bit of a surprise.
Even after 80 rides and no winners, did you still think, I've got this?
Yeah. I just thought, well, it's nothing to do with me. It's just the horses aren't good enough.
Slow horses.
Yeah. So I came to England. I can remember meeting Stan Moore, of all people, the trainer who's based in Lambourne now, while I was having a sweat in the sauna in Newbridge before going to ride something at the Curragh. And he was actually riding on the flats, believe it or not. And anybody that knows Stan Moore now will know, when they see him, you'd have thought, he rode on the flats? Like, Stan Moore's not a small man. But he's small in height, but not really. He's quite round now. So you'd never imagined he used to be a flat jockey, but he was. And he actually rode the winner, I think, of an Irish Cesarewitch as well. So, he was very capable. But anyway, he set it up for me to come to England. And I came 6 months in the UK, didn't really like it. I was based actually in Royston in Hertfordshire and didn't really like it. It was very different to Ireland. And I moved down to the West Country, met a small trainer down there called Richard Tucker, ended up riding 2 winners for him. My first ride over hurdles was actually a winner. And then suddenly I'm like, oh, here we go. All it was missing was the obstacles. So I rode 2 winners and a second in my first 3 rides. And then I went 18 months before I rode another winner. So it was quite a long time between success. But again, same thing, never lost any belief, always thought it was just the horses. All I need is the opportunity. And met a guy called Ray Callow. He had a horse called Duncan Idaho, and Sunset Sam was another horse that he had. And I rode both of those, and they relaunched my career. And without those 2, I'd have never really got going. And it was almost like a snowball effect. Once I started to gather momentum, I literally flew. And within 2 seasons, I was champion conditional and had been offered a job as stable jockey to Nicky Henderson.
And was it jockey or nothing? I mean, when you grew up, did you know that was going to be your be all and end all, or did you actually have lots of different potential career paths? Were you good at school? How did it look in the younger years?
Yeah, I was reasonably bright at school, and I was 13 and I rode my first racehorse. And that very first canter, that was it, gone. From that day on, that's all I ever wanted to do, was be a jockey.
But did you grow up with ponies and all the rest?
Yeah, well, no, not really. We moved. We used to live in a large town in Killarney in County Kerry, and then we moved to the country, to Wexford, where my dad is from. And we had a pony between the 3 of us. I've got an older brother and a younger sister, and we shared the pony. And I just loved it more than they did, and that's all I ever wanted to do. So from the age of 9, I started riding. And like I say, I rode my first racehorse when I was 13, just by chance, really. No racing connection, just my dad used to mend cars. And there was a guy who came to get his car fixed, and he worked in a local racing yard. And he said, look, we're looking for a boy Friday. Do you think your son would like to come and, muck out and see how he gets on? My dad said, well, yeah, I'll ask him. So off I went. And that was it. Like, honestly, that first racehorse that morning, that was it, gone. I couldn't think of anything else. And there was a guy, the headmaster of the school was a guy called Ronnie McCormick. And he actually came out to see my parents and told them that I should nip it in the bud, that I could get a good education and go on to secondary education as well. And my dad, give him his due, he turned around and said, look, this is what the lad wants to do. Let him do it.
That's good. Yeah. And look where it's taken you. I want to ask you also about like career post riding as well, but let's focus on the Grand National for now.
Yeah.
When did you first ride in it?
I had my first ride in the National in 95, so the year before I won it.
Okay.
And again, usual thing. I thought the horse had a chance. You have all the build up. Like, and one of the great things about riding in the National is like it's such a buzz. Like, it's so exciting. I cannot tell you. Like, you're like a child on Christmas morning when you're riding the National. Is that
because there's so much attention on it, or is it because of fences, because of the distance, because of the 40 horses, or is it just because there's so much national fever?
Oh, it's everything, Francesca. Like, if you remember watching the National as a child, like I do, and you see the way the camera used to run alongside the horses. Like, I cannot tell you, but even when I won the race, going to 3 out, I can remember thinking, this is what it's like when the cameras were driving alongside you. I am literally alongside the camera. And then I thought to myself, come on, snap out of it. You've only got 3 left.
And well, you were traveling pretty well. I watched the race back today, and it looked like it was a foregone conclusion from quite a long way out. But we'll get to that. But first National, massive buzz. You thought you had a chance.
Yeah.
How did it go?
Yeah, but it's like it's great. Walking in front of the stands. Everybody cheering. Like, it really is a great buzz. You canter to the first, and then you get ready, and then the tapes go up, and off you go down to the first. Bang. I'm literally on my arse.
Oh, literally?
Yeah.
Oh, we might have lost your picture, Mick. I've lost your picture. Lost you completely. By the sound of it. I'm guessing everyone else has lost Mick too. It's not just my internet connection. Ed, have you lost Mick?
Yes, I've lost him too. Here we go. Sorry, I'm here now. Emma's here too, because we're going to talk about Ukraine at the very end, we thought. So sorry, everyone. We seem to have lost Mick. Oh, we've now got Mick back.
Here we go. Oh, he's back.
Oh, I'm back.
He's sideways.
Okay, I'm going again. Okay, I'm going beneath the sea.
How does that work?
There we go.
He's back. Is that better?
Right, Ed.
I don't know what happened. Yeah, well, that was literally like me at the
it was good timing. So you were like, bang. So literally.
Gone. And I can remember looking round that at the very first fence, and who was alongside me? Only Luke Harvey.
No way.
Yeah, and he was riding a horse called. Yeah, he was riding a horse called Country Member, who was one of the favourites.
No way.
And he was gutted, like absolutely gutted. Like, my thing was 50-1, but his was favourite. So that was the end of that. And then, and the horrible thing.
What it's like, isn't it, though? Because you've got 40 horses. It's a real camera charge to the first. Despite the fact that you're all professional jockeys, it still grabs you, doesn't it? And does everyone lose their head a little bit because or is it just the number of horses that just makes it mental?
Yeah, but I know it's maybe not so bad now because they have altered the fences, and you very rarely get fallers over the first few fences now. But in the old days, it was that cavalry charge down over the first few. Like, the majority of the fallers happened by the time you jumped Beechers first time, you had thinned the field out. Whereas now,
is that about the 5th or 6th fence?
Yeah, Beechers is number 6. So there's a little gap in the hedge, well, it used to be. And I can remember walking it the very first time. Like, I cannot tell you how different it is compared to normal race riding. Because even when I walked around, I can remember the very first time I went there, I rode a horse for Tim Thompson-Jones. And I can remember walking around and I'm thinking, what is all the fuss about? They're not actually that big, right? So but then, like I say, I was young, cocky, thought, God, what are they going on about? And I can remember going to the very first fence in Topham, and this horse rubbed. It was called Skin Hill. I can even remember what he was called. Rubbed the first, and it was nothing. And I just thought, oh yeah. But next thing, I was literally clinging on by my fingernails, and I thought, oh, okay. So suddenly I thought, right, now I kind of get it.
Okay.
because they are different, and they do, because of the way the spruce is lined on top of the fence. It means that you can't flick through it like you can birch.
You can't.
So no, it's
It's not all
especially when it
froth.
gets. Yeah, it is now, but in those days it was actually thicker, and especially if it's wet. If that spruce gets wet, it gets really heavy, so it
Okay.
becomes harder to knock off. So it's a bit like when you try to push over a barrel that's empty, it's easy, but you try and push over a barrel that's full, it's a lot harder. And it's the very same with the spruce when it gets wet. So that's why when you have a lot of rain, it's more difficult for the horses to get round.
And which is the scariest fence on the course?
The first.
Really?
Because nobody wants to fall at the first. And it's a small fence, but it's the speed that catches them out. And it was, the drops used to be more significant before, and every fence had a drop. So if you over jumped traveling at speed and the horses weren't ready for it, they ended up on their nose. And that's when a lot of jockeys came to grief. But believe it or not, the third fence is actually a big fence. It's the first ditch, but it's a big fence. And then Valentine's, which is the one after Canal, that's a big fence. And very often you'll have horses fall at that when they'll have got all the way around, jump Canal. You think, well, oh yeah, here we go, that's fine. But next thing you get to Valentine's, and that suddenly, if they don't back off that, they'll end up on their arse.
I think it's going to be really good on ITV this week, because we're going to have a drone flying over the course. And for those that haven't been, I think it should be quite instructive, because until I went, I hadn't been to the Grand National till I did my first one for ITV, 3 years ago. And until I walked the course, I didn't really grasp what it was like. But there's that really good row, isn't there? So you go away from home, the first 5, then you've got beaches, and then you start turning, right? And then
you do, Foynehaven and Canal.
And Canal is literally like on the right angle. So that's why you see them all fanning out, trying to get the right angle over Canal, because otherwise you can land, want to turn, or the horse wants to turn left to go follow the others. And you see a few jockeys kind of tipping out the right there, don't you?
Yeah, because they don't know where they are. And that's, and like John Joe, he came flying off Chris's Dream, I think, in the Beecher there. And I think he just got caught out. Barry O'Neill last year in the Fox Hunters, I was watching that again this morning. And the horse that he rode, I'm not sure he realised he was at the Canal, because he nearly ended up going out the far side. So you've got to be aware. And I can remember getting a horrendous fall in the Topham off a horse called Scots Grey, who actually went on to win the Fox Hunters with Richard Burton riding him. And I thought he was a good thing in the Topham. And I was in second or third place going to Canal, and I'm getting ready to turn. So I've tracked out and then tracking back in. I think it was Henry Oliver who was on the horse in front of me, and he realised late that it was Canal.
Ooh.
So I'm turning, and then he's starting to turn late, and he's cut the snout off me, and my horse turned a somersault because he got blinded last minute. So you can imagine my language.
I know. Is there much kind of shouting? Are you saying Canal next, or oi, fan out, or whatever?
I think it was something like, you muppet, it's the Canal.
I remember one year, I can't remember which one it was, when there was a loose horse, and literally everyone was kind of swinging out and then funneling into that corner of Canal, and something literally just came and wiped most of the field out.
I think that was the year that Balthazar King got wiped out.
Was it?
It was a lot to do with the loose horse,
Yeah, gosh, it's crazy. But okay, so the first year, 95, first ride, came down at the first fence.
Yeah.
But the next year was a very different story. You were on the favourite. How did you get that ride?
Well, I'd ridden him, I'd won him at Cheltenham the previous year, and then had finished second on him in the Gold Cup, and he only had 10-7 in the National. So basically, it was only 2 weeks after the Gold Cup, mind. So it was quite a quick turnaround. He had fallen over the national fences in the Topham, and I had one previous ride in the race, ended up on my ass, basically, my first ride and only ride. Okay. So suddenly you have a jockey who's had one ride fallen at the first. You've got a horse who has fallen over the fences, but he's probably got a stone and a half in hand.
Yeah, how was he in so well? Because the weights came out before the Gold Cup.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Okay.
And he was a good handicapper, but people didn't think he was good enough to be placed in a Gold Cup. And like, he actually went on and was placed in two King Georges as well. So, you know, he was a very good horse. And it really was, you know, it's one of those races where you kind of know, you know, don't cock this up, because if you negotiate the obstacles, this will win. And you know, I was, like I said, I was always very confident in myself, and I was very confident in him, because I'd been second in the Gold Cup on him. I'd won several big races on him. He was a good horse, and I thought he loved the fences. And it's funny, when you ride round there, especially then, you kind of know after you've jumped 2 or 3. And he was so good over the first. And he, like, when he jumped the third, the big ditch, I literally, honestly, I literally went, oh my God. This, you know.
And how much of a game plan can you have, and how much did you stick to it during the race?
Yeah, my plan was to sit middle to rear early, keep out of trouble I had a list of horses that I did not want to be anywhere near, and a list of horses that I was happy to track. And I had a pretty good position, middle outer, no point. I didn't want to be anywhere near the inside of Beechers, because there was no point. I didn't need to, because I was on a horse that had plenty up his sleeve. And basically keep out of trouble. But my number one thing with him was I couldn't hit the front too soon on him, because he'd pull up. So I had a plan, and my plan was not to hit the front until after the elbow.
Yeah, there was I watched it back today. You were quite sneakily stalking the one in front of you, just hovering up his arse, thinking, am I going to go left or right? Eventually you came around him at the elbow.
Yeah.
But then there was a bit of a hairy moment, wasn't there? Because you got a bit close, and then there was a steward's inquiry after the line.
Yeah, and that was, you know, that really ruined it in many ways, because poor old Terry Casey, he's dead now, who trained the horse. He was one of the most pessimistic men you'll ever meet, Terry. He was always a glass half full, you know.
Half empty.
Half empty, sorry. But I was always a glass half full. And he said to me, I think there's a steward's inquiry. We're in trouble here. And I went, I'm not going to lose it, Terry. And he went, I'm not sure about that. And I suddenly started thinking, really?
Oh no.
So I'm coming back in, and you have that moment when you walk, like, it's changed now. I think they call it McCoy's Bar now, where you used to walk under the rafters into the little area. And, you know, I was pretty sure I was going to keep it, but the more people say, I'm worried, you start to doubt. And then, of course, you get hauled in front of the stewards, and you watch it on 9 screens from every conceivable angle. It's in slow motion. Every time you see it, it gets worse.
Did the jockey in second make a big case for why he should have?
But he did. But at the same time, it was kind of half-hearted, because he kind of knew.
And the winning margin was what, a length and a half?
It was a length. Yeah. But at the same time, you suddenly go in there thinking, I could become the first jockey ever to win the race and then lose it in the steward's room. And you can't help but have that panic in your stomach when you think, I've just won the national and I might have it taken off me. So
at the time, did you think, I'm crossing in front of him, I'm a bit close, or did you think you were?
I thought I was clear.
Okay.
Which I was, really, but at the same time, you have that doubt, don't you?
Yeah.
And so then they say, right, gentlemen, can you wait outside? So you wait outside, and like all that time, it feels like an eternity, but in reality, it's probably only a couple of minutes. I have to admit, I was shitting myself. I really was. And then they pull you back in, and they say, gentlemen, there is no alterations.
Whew.
and you're suddenly, oh my God, like you nearly fall over.
Oh,
And then
God.
I can remember getting whisked outside. You're thrust in front of Des Lynam. Now, Des Lynam, as far as I'm concerned, he's a half brother to God. Like he was a broadcasting hero, and he was iconic. And I can remember staring at him, and he said, "Mick Fitzgerald, you've just won the Grand National. How do you feel?" And I looked at him, and I can remember looking at him and thinking, "You're a lot taller than I thought you would be."
Of all the things you're thinking,
I know. It's
tall.
like, I know, it's mad. And I said to him, "Well, Des," like he was my long lost buddy. After that, even sex is an anticlimax.
Is that your first line?
Yeah.
That's great.
And
How
I can
was it
remember his
received?
eyes just flickered. His eyes just flickered. Because now, of course, we work in TV, you're wearing an earpiece and you've got people talking to you all the time. And somebody must have said something to him because his eyes just flicked. And I can remember thinking, ooh. And it's only now that you realize actually the enormity of what you said. But at the time, I don't know why, but I just said it.
So wait, did it literally just come out, or did you think about it at all?
It just came out.
And how was it received? Like saying sex on daytime, primetime TV with 10 million people watching, was it a big hoo-ha, or how was it?
Well, I think the fact that I called my autobiography Better Than Sex probably tells you that it was received reasonably well.
Okay. I wonder, how do you think it would have been received these days? Do you think we're a lot more kind of sensitive these days, or shockable?
I don't know.
I don't know.
How would you take it if somebody said that to you when somebody wins the Grand National this weekend?
If I was interviewing them?
Yeah.
Would I take it? I don't know.
What do you think your next line would be?
Oh God, I don't know. I think I'd laugh and then think, is that fully appropriate? What was his next line then? Can't remember.
No, I can't.
I tried to find it today on YouTube. I was kind of putting everything into YouTube, and I watched endless videos, and then they all seemed to cut out before your interview. But I'd love to know what he did say next, actually, from a broadcasting perspective.
Yeah. I don't know. I really can't remember. I think I'd like to say it's all a blur after that, because you do so much media afterwards, and press conferences and all that, and it was amazing. But I can remember, one of the best things of the whole thing, and my longest lasting memory, and it's one that I'll cherish forever, was my dad was with me for the 3 days, and I can remember at the end of the day, it must have been 7:00. The place was deserted, because in those days the National was about 3:40. The place was deserted. There was it's a bit like walking into a ghost town. There's papers everywhere and plastic bottles and people cleaning up. And I suddenly thought, after all the media, I thought, where's my dad? How am I going to find him? Where would he be? Because in those days, he loved to drink, my dad. And I thought, he'll be on the lash. So I'll never find him. And
you couldn't just ping him a text either in those days.
No, there was no mobile phones. And I can remember I walked around the corner and there he was. And he literally, he was a bit worse for wear now. But he put his thumb up and he just said, "You did it."
So you hadn't seen him at all between finishing the race and then?
Not at all. Not at all. And that picture of him with his thumb up is frozen in my mind. And it was it was a lovely moment as far as I'm concerned, because it meant the world to him and it meant the world to me, because he was able to be there to share it with me.
I wonder if the old schoolmaster from home was watching.
I don't know, actually. I don't know. Ronnie McCormick. I think he actually came to see my mother afterwards, and said, "Oh, maybe you were right, actually, to let him do what he wanted."
Yeah. And I asked this to a lot of people, Cheltenham Gold Cup or Grand National, which one had the biggest significance to you?
I always wanted to win a Gold Cup. and I won a national, obviously, before I won a Gold Cup. And I think it was only then that I realised how big the national was, because it changed everything for me. Because you're forever known as Grand National winning jockey. You're not, and people recognise that. It's a big deal when you win a national. It's a big deal on a personal level when you win a Gold Cup, because it's the blue ribbon of steeplechasing, and there's still that lottery element of the national. But at the same time, I wanted to win a Gold Cup, but when I won the national, I thought, well, yeah, that's pretty cool.
So even in hindsight, if you'd only won one, it would have been the Gold Cup.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because for me, that was the one I wanted more than any other.
Okay.
But don't get me wrong. Like I wouldn't give up my national, because, like I say, it changes everything. Okay. The way people perceive you.
Yeah, and other nationals, we haven't got a huge amount of time left, because like I said, I could keep chatting for hours, but which national after that stands out the most?
The following year in 97, I rode the favourite again. I was called Go Ballistic, the year of the bomb scare, and I weighed out and handed my saddle over, and then we got told that we had to leave the race course. And I was like, but we've just weighed out. And they were like, I don't care. You've got to go. We're leaving. Everybody's
was that
leaving.
late on in the piece?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was very late on. And I was literally, I had to go with what I was wearing. So I was fully dressed in breeches and boots, and off we went. And
where did you
I can remember I ended up in a party in the Adelphi. So I was in the nightclub downstairs in the Adelphi, dancing, dressed fully in my riding gear. So it was a very good night.
That's hilarious. Gosh.
And obviously we had the national on the Monday that Lord Galeen won, and the horse that I rode was a horse called Go Ballistic, who'd finished second he actually finished second to me when I won the Gold Cup. Right. On Seymour Business. He was a very good horse, but it's amazing. Like in those days, horses either took to the fences or they didn't, and he was a kind of flippant jumper who didn't really respect the obstacles. But I'm telling you, when he went to the first, he absolutely wet himself in the national, and he never picked the bridle up and never went a yard.
Oh wow!
Yeah, gosh, just did amazing. Not like it. Yeah,
how they can notice the difference so quickly.
Oh yeah, he knew.
I like this. I back Go Ballistic. You owe me a $5.
I don't do refunds.
I don't do refunds. And then it was injury that forced you to end your career, wasn't it?
Well, it was the national in 2008. I rode a horse called Lammy. I was lucky, I suppose, in the last few years. I had a few good yards that I was riding for, and I actually had a choice of 3 horses in the race that year. And a horse of Willie Mullins's was one, which eventually finished third. Lammy was another, and there was another horse as well that I could have ridden, and I chose Lammy because I'd finished 6th in a Gold Cup on him. Trained by Francois Duman. I used to ride a few for Francois as well. He'd been round the year before, didn't really go to plan, but you know what? I thought he was a good ride, and I thought he had a squeak, and basically went to the second fence and just had a blank. And I can remember, he did, not me. I knew I had a fair idea of what I was doing, but he didn't do what I asked him, and he just didn't do anything. He just froze.
Oh.
And that was not a nice experience. And I can remember lying at the back of the second fence, and I can remember as he hit the fence, he hit it so low down. I thought, this is going to hurt. And I can remember you try and like automatically get yourself into a ball to roll, but there was no rolling. He just literally speared me into the floor, and I blacked out. And I can remember waking up and I couldn't feel my legs. I was basically, and that was not a nice experience. And that was the last time I rode a horse. So I haven't ridden since.
Not on a horse?
No.
Oh, right. Because on medical advice, did they say You'll never
Yeah,
ride.
well, I broke C3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and I've got quite a lot of metal in my neck, which basically means that it's quite fixed, and they've told me that I don't really have any leeway. That if I
Right.
have a fall and I land awkwardly, it'll basically snap me. So,
Geez, so you were incredibly lucky not to damage the spinal cord.
unbelievable. Yeah, they said that like people who've had the same injury as me are paralyzed. I was just lucky. So,
Were you ready to give up then, or were you still?
no, I wasn't. I was having a really good run of things. I was 37. I was fitter than I'd ever been in my career. And I'd kind of rededicated myself to it. I just had my second child with my wife. And I was kind of, like I say, rededicated to the job. And Nicky Henderson had a lot of nice horses coming. We'd had a few barren years, but he'd suddenly got a lot of nice ones. But, them's the breaks, as they say. And, look, it was one chapter closed and then another open. But, that was the end, really.
Did you always have an eye on a career in the media?
Yeah, I think so. I'd started doing some stuff for Sky, bits and pieces for them. And yeah, it was something that I quite enjoyed doing. So yeah.
And it's been good to you. You've been good to it, and it's been good to you.
Yeah, well, look, it's been really good to me. Look, I know the first year that when I gave up, I struggled a little bit because I still wanted to be a jockey, and I missed that buzz of riding and riding winners and the glory, really. And then I thought, right, you've got to cop yourself on. You've got to knuckle down and work a bit harder. I'm very lucky. John Holmes is my agent, and I had a pretty good chat with John, and he literally spelled it out to me and said, look, if you want to do this job, you've got to get stuck in, and you've got to be prepared for when you are on TV and when you're doing your job. And if you are, well, then people will appreciate the work that you're doing. And thankfully, I've managed to do that and get better, I hope, each year. And hopefully now I'm slightly better than I was when I started.
And what's your record like of tipping winners of the Grand National?
Probably not bad, actually.
Okay.
Maybe slightly better than yours, or not?
My record of tipping anything is not good. So let's find out your selections for this year's race.
Right. Okay. Well, I have a short list of a few, and I think with a race like the National, you're kind of allowed to have a few goals because it's that kind of race. So I really like Fiddler on the Roof.
Okay.
Trained by the Tizards. He finished second in his last start at Ascot. Now, he was disappointing at Ascot. I was very disappointed with how he travelled and how he jumped, yet he still finished second. And I think that tells you how much ability he has. He finished second in the Ladbroke Trophy. He's only a little bit higher than that mark running here. Ground won't be a problem for him. And I just think if he jumps and travels a bit better than he did at Ascot, I think he's definitely a player.
Okay.
Definitely.
Is that your main one, or have you got a few others?
I have a few others. I think there's a horse called the Longhouse Poet, trained by Martin Brazel, is another one. Martin won the race previously with number 6 Valverde. This horse has got a similar sort of profile. He's got plenty of talent. He won the Thyestes at Gorn Park, which is a really competitive handicap. He races here off a mark. Yes, okay, it is a little bit higher than that, but at the same time, I think he has to be respected. I really do.
And a few people have kind of popped up on the chat asking about the handicap system, because it's very pertinent in a race like this. Obviously, the best horse on ratings carries the most weight, and the worst horse technically carries the least weight. Is there a sweet spot?
Yeah, I think that, it used to be that horses carrying less than 11.4 had a better chance, but I think that's altering a little bit. I think the way the race is panning out with a lot better quality horses throwing their hat into the ring. Like this year, you've got Manila Times carrying top weight, who is off a mark of 161, Delta Work off 160. You know, like these are all horses that could win the race. You know, there's a horse in here called Any Second Now. Ted Walsh has finished third last year. Didn't have the best run around. Has 11 stone 8. He's a 10-year-old. You know, there's a lot of people will tell you about trends, and I think a lot of those trends will alter. I think because of the way the fences have been altered, there is no let up in the race. It's not a case of surviving the first circuit and then racing for the second circuit anymore. It's end to end now.
So that's interesting, because I heard people saying that you actually need a horse with more speed now, but actually, if you're saying it's end to end, you need lots of stamina.
Yes, you do. You need a horse that stays now.
Oh,
you know, the old.
That's funny, because I heard someone say you would need a kind of 2.5 miler.
No, you don't. The 2.5 milers will empty now.
Okay.
And I think you need a horse that stays. You know, you need. Look, Francesca, the number one thing that you need round here is class. And if you've got a horse that's got that touch of class and is not badly handicapped, that's the sort of horse you want to be riding. So a Delta Work in here, who prior to running in the cross country, his last 15 runs had been in grade ones.
Well, that's
like
why
he is. But well, yeah, he is the horse coming in here that is ticking all the boxes, and he has to be of interest to anybody.
But he's short. He's like second favorite, isn't he?
Yeah, he is now, but he's 8-1. So, like, he's not like even money or 2-1, or like when he won I think he was 2-1 or 5-2 when he won the cross country. A lot of people were saying, "Oh my God, like it's his first try over the fences." But like I say, he'd run his last 15 starts in grade 1 races. So, you know, that's a huge deal. Look at some of the other horses in here, like Gordon Elliott at the moment has 8 horses in the race who look like they're going to get a run.
And what was it last year? Was there one in the first 11 home that was English trained?
Yes.
Dear.
I think it could be. I'm hoping it won't be, but it could be a wipeout. If Fiddler on the Roof doesn't get involved, I think we could be in trouble.
But you're forgetting one.
Snow Leopardess.
Yeah. Imagine the scenes on ITV Racing if Alice Plunkett's mother-in-law wins with the grey mare Snow Leopardess. It'll be bonkers, won't it? It
will be very bonkers. She's got a lot of things in her favour. Only got 10 stone 9, I think, at the moment. She's a 10-year-old. She's won the Beecher Chase, so she's got previous over the fences, which, you know, normally counts for plenty. Didn't obviously last year with Manila Drama winning, but yeah, she's definitely a player, and I think I felt she's a better mare on slower ground. We don't
really know what ground we're going to get, because they're potentially got a dry forecast and potentially got a wet forecast. So what are we going to get?
I think we're going to get a bit of a mixture. It looks like at the moment Friday and Saturday is going to be relatively dry.
Okay.
If that's the case, we could have reasonable ground, because they had 7 mils last night, which meant the ground is good to soft. There's a bit of rain around this week, which should probably keep it at that, but they're not going to let it get any faster than good to soft. Yeah,
for welfare reasons.
Yes.
Yeah, but I'd hate to be a clerk of the course, because as we witnessed at Cheltenham, you're buggered if you do, buggered if you don't, because they want it safe ground. But then if the rain comes, we could end up with softer ground. But Ashley Getty tells us it's been raining the last 2 days here in Liverpool, so any extra rain would be in the favour of Snow Leopardess. Well, she was very prominent when she won over the fences last time. Can they set her back a bit more this time, or?
I know. I think they'll allow her to be reasonably prominent. I think she enjoys being ridden that way, and you know,
that's was the last national winner to make all. Can it be done?
It's a tough ask.
It
is a tough ask. Hedge Hunter was pretty prominent, I suppose, when he won, but yeah, no, trying to make all. It takes a bit of doing.
Bit of a sitting duck, aren't you?
Yeah, but she won't need to make it, because there'll be plenty of lads who want their little slice of glory, who'll want to be in front going to Beecher's first time and make sure they get in the camera shot, and got to be in front of her Beecher's.
She'd be the one that I'd want to ride, the way she jumps those fences.
That's a massive plus, because she's good both ways, short and long. And I think if you were putting your hand up for one, she would be on the short list, definitely.
Now, what are we? The 8:21. Should we let Ed back in and he can give us some questions from everybody who's been watching? I think there's going to be plenty of them. Here we go. How's the chicken going?
I was actually going to just put a raw chicken in front of me, and you just you just didn't give me enough time. Shall I come back in? You've
been so riveted by the chat. You haven't been to cook your chicken, have you?
No, I have. I'm mesmerised by the chat. The chat has been really strong, and the funny thing is, actually, because you've obviously been reading it too, you've between you answered most of the questions along the way. One actually came from Hannah, and I just slightly wonder if there's something slightly sort of a double entendre beneath this. But Mick, question for you: when you're at Aintree, do you wish, when you're covering it for ITV Racing, or do you wish you were riding, or does working with the media satisfy your drive anyway?
I wish I was riding, because there is, look, Francesca's lovely.
But
it's just not the same as riding in the race.
That's fantastic. Then you covered the handicap, and you've seen a number of people are asking about the handicap, and I think you sort of covered that without. Have you done one of your question things, Francesca Explains, on the handicap?
I have, yeah. When I did the first series of my explainers that I put on Instagram with George, Purple Moon, I think I did explain, the handicap. Essentially, it's that the best horse carries the most weight, and then gradually it goes down to the worst horse that carries the least weight. But like Mick says, like he was explaining with Rough Quest, you kind of want the horse that's a bit ahead of the handicapper or carrying less weight than he should be, essentially. That's why often people like looking for unexposed horses or younger horses, because they've still got more potential rather than the handicapper seeing their full ability. So that's it, isn't it, Mick? You just want to try and be that step ahead.
Yeah, it's a bit like having a young pretender come along, and you just don't know how good they are because you haven't seen enough of them. Whereas when you've seen them, where it doesn't matter whether it's fighting or whether it's racing, if you've seen them a lot, you know how good or bad they are. But if you haven't seen them a lot, they could be anything. And that's why the horses that are younger, less exposed, are the ones really that in handicaps you need to be looking at.
And is there a lot of kind of game playing in the national, like a lot of hiding lights under bushels in the lead up?
Yeah, of course there is, because the weights aren't revealed, I think, on the 16th of February. So everybody is holding a lot of people have the handbrake on, basically, until the weights come out. Like, you'll see quite a lot of horses who have not been running that much on the build up to the race. Like, they deliberately kept back Fiddler on the Roof until after the weights had been announced, because they didn't want him to go and run well and then be put up, which has happened. So, that's in effect what you want to see, because there is a few horses who will run after the weights have come out. Like any second now, the horse that's one of the favourites of Ted Walsh's, he came out after the weights were revealed and won. So he's one that is definitely, had he have done that before the weights have been revealed, he might have had more weight. I
was looking at one today, actually, just doing a bit of early prep, and he hadn't run since November. Chatham Street Lad for Michael Winters.
Michael Winters, yeah. If he's interviewed on ITV, you might need subtitles.
Definitely. Can't understand a word he says.
Yeah.
You understand him, I'm guessing you do, being Irish.
Yes, I do. Yeah. But he's from Cork, and he's from the coast, and yeah, it takes a bit of doing. If anybody remembers the two Irish rowers from Skibbereen, he's very similar to them.
Yeah. And he got down in the winners enclosure and rolled in the mud when that horse won at Cheltenham in December 21.
Yeah.
He's a character.
Yeah. He is.
Sorry, Ed, we've hijacked your question session.
No, I'm delighted. I can't believe how fast it's all gone. Your conversation has been so fluid and interesting. I didn't want to butt in at all, but I just sort of kind of knew that we were doing stuff. Question that Ashley Getty asked, which hasn't, I'm slightly changed a little bit from what he asked, but try and keep the theme the same. And it's to you, Mick. It's kind of Cheltenham Festival versus Aintree, which is more prestigious? Why? And is Aintree more or less prestigious than it was? I have my own opinion about that, which no one wants to hear, but I'd like to hear yours.
No, look, Cheltenham is unique. It is very special, and everybody wants to win at Cheltenham. It seems like there's less pressure with Aintree. I don't know why that is, because, you know, very often the prize is every bit as valuable. It's every bit as prestigious as in the grade. You might have a grade 1 at Aintree, which is worth just as much as a grade 1 at Cheltenham, but the grade 1 at Cheltenham seems to have more standing. So yeah, I think because of that, and because of the unique nature of Aintree, a lot of people are almost more forgiving because they feel that there's lots of reasons why a horse won't have won at Aintree. Whereas very often at Cheltenham, they're less forgiving, and they'll say, well, the reason it got beat at Cheltenham is because it wasn't good enough, or because the jockey rode a bad race, or because the trainer's out of form. Whereas at Aintree, people will say, ooh, it's a bit close to Cheltenham. Maybe he ran too well at Cheltenham. Maybe he's a bit tired. So they're, like I say, they're slightly more forgiving of a poor run at Aintree.
And funny enough, that doesn't happen in the flat so much, because you get these series of sort of peaks of you know, big flat meetings, and suddenly in jumping you just get these 2-1s right at the end of the season, I guess, which give people excuses for.
Yeah, I've always wondered about that. It is like they say, all roads lead to Cheltenham, and Cheltenham seems to be the all and end all. Whereas I personally prefer the way the flat season works, where you've got loads of peaks. You've got the Guineas meeting, you've got the Derby.
Yeah, but Francesca, you lot on the flat would love to have a Cheltenham.
We've got Royal Ascot.
But you know, is Royal Ascot the highlight of the year?
Depends who you ask, but there's lots of different highlights, and if you've got a good horse, you've got lots of opportunities. You don't have to just have that 1 week of the calendar in mind, and you can campaign them with lots of different targets. And I think in a way it's more interesting for the public because they can follow their progression through the season.
What, for 1 year?
Ooh, okay. Okay, I can't really argue with that. No, we've got Adayar coming back this year, last year's Derby winner. Looking forward to him as a 4-year-old. Hurricane Lane as well.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll have that argument another day.
Anyway, moving on.
Moving on.
Very good. I'm just from both of you, probably, well, Cheska, I hope you've done something, but I'm sure you have. A couple of, there's lots of things picking up and you can probably see them yourselves, but a couple of tips just for Aintree itself. Just, you know, what are we going to pull in?
All I'm going to say is that for anyone who does watch Franny's Fancies, I think we've been doing it for a number of weeks now, and there hasn't probably been a single winner. So
it has, because I gave you that forecast. But, you know.
What?
I gave you that forecast.
Yeah, you do try. The days I'm not working, you do try and help me. So you're partly to blame, but you genuinely don't want. I liked Snow Leopardess and Dell to work for the Grand National, but I genuinely haven't looked at another race yet because I tend to focus. Well, tomorrow will be a study day and Wednesday, so it's over to you, Mick.
I think Pied Piper is one that will love the track. The track will really suit him for that juvenile hurdle on the opening day. I think the Betway Bowl is quite an interesting race. I think Protectorat, he seemed to really enjoy himself, finished third in the Gold Cup. I think he's probably the one. Kemboy is a previous winner of the race, but I just think Protectorat round there would have a very good chance. I think the Fox Hunters is again a really good race. I was looking through this today, and Sam Whaley Cohen rides a horse called Jet. And if you want to just remind yourself of how much this horse loves it round there, go and watch last year's National when this horse was making the running. Absolutely blitzed along, really did, and seemed to love it. So I think
So
they're
it
going to
reminds
have a
me of
lot
the
of fun with that.
Fox Hunters and not the National this year.
Because they want to, he doesn't quite stay.
Okay.
So I think they feel that this is a bit more this horse's bag. But what I will say is Jet is one of the favourites for that race. But the horse ridden by Gina Andrews, which is trained by her husband, called Late Night Pass, was placed in the race last year. And I thought was a little bit unlucky in the race last year. So I think Late Night Pass is probably a bit of value on the opening day.
Great.
I've written all those down. It's amazing for me. Late. How do you spell value?
Really?
Thank you very, very much. I think what I didn't do, which is appalling on me, is we've got the Mick Fitzgerald Racing Club. All your
Yes,
people.
we have, and I'm really pleased to see that quite a few of them have tuned in. So
yes, so I'm thrilled, and I was it's top of my list to thank them for joining us at the beginning, and obviously I failed because that's what I normally do. But it's lovely that they're here, and thank you very much for being here. Jessica, thank you very much for. I got all these texts coming in from the sort of management side of this, going, "This is such a good conversation. We can't allow it to end," and that says volumes about both of you, because it was fascinating, and we were sitting here, and I've completely lost track of time too. So, thank you both very, very much. Thank you very much for Old God Racing's production team behind this, for putting this together, and we'll all look forward, both the Mick Fitzgerald Racing Club and Old God Racing, and Fitzdares people are here too, to seeing you presenting over the next few days, and seeing all these things coming home. And I guess we are all giving a massive cheer to Snow Leopard. So Charlie trains for us. My mother shared a house with, oh, Mick's gone. Back. With Mrs. Fox Pitt, and I just cannot wait to see the pandemonium in ITV racing if that happens. So, I mean, I just think romantically, if that happened, we would all just love it.
It would be great.
That's where I am. Mick, thank you very, very much. Jessica, thank you very, very much. Everyone for watching, thank you very much. I hope you got most of your questions in one way or another. And we will see you in whatever lunacy we're planning next, which I promise you we are.
That sounds interesting. Thanks, Ed.
Take care.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye.